also had Dan Strange on, and he mentioned in the first millennium how they're debating on the deity of Jesus, fully God, fully man. Second one, the second millennium, nature of salvation. Third millennium is what does it mean to be human in the middle of the world? And I think that's a pretty telling idea to see that. And I think your work actually is hand in glove for that. It
Yeah.
just fits that idea, which is something the scriptures already talked about. Why do you think, though, we've lost this? I mean, is it because of the bad theology that's there? How have we
Yeah.
just moored away from this
I think
so completely?
I think a lot of it, and I don't join in the anti-Augustine chorus which goes on. I have a lot of respect for Augustine, even where I think he did lead us astray in some ways. But the concentration on sin then, filtered through the long Middle Ages, comes out as this is the first thing we say about human beings. Indeed, it's the first thing we say about Genesis. God creates this lovely garden, and he sets humans an exam which they fail. And that's not what's going on in Genesis 1 and 2. It isn't, here's an exam, and if you pass this, you get to go to heaven, and if you don't, I'm sorry, you're going to hell. And so many Christians have been taught theology that way. What it is here are these humans who are the image bearers within God's temple. And as you will know this stuff, I hope, that creation is the construction of a temple, a heaven plus earth reality with an image at its heart. That is a temple in the ancient world. The humans are given this amazing vocation to reflect God into the world and reflect the praises of the world back to God. Before we mention sin, we've got to celebrate that vocation, which is celebrated in, for instance, Psalm 8. In other words, the fall hasn't ruined that vocation. And in Colossians 3, Paul says that we are now in Christ to be renewed in knowledge according to the image. In other words, getting back to the image is where we're aiming at. And in the book of Revelation, we are to be the royal priesthood. That's the same thing, sharing God's rule over the world, sharing the praises of the world to bring them back to God. Now, when you see that that's what being human is all about, then you realize that the problem with sin is not, oh dear, I've done some wrong things, so God's got a big stick and he's going to punish me, but that, oh dear, I've messed up, I've worshipped idols, and therefore the bit of God's ongoing creational purposes, which I ought to be an agent of, ain't happening right now. And I need to be rescued, not just so that my soul can go to heaven, which is something the Bible never says, but so that I will be part of God's putting right purposes for his world. And that is a whole different take on what it means to be human, what it ought to mean to be human. And when we get that right, yes, well, roll on the third millennium if that's what we're going to be talking about. But that positive line, and this isn't to say that sin doesn't matter. It's when you see this, you realize just how much sin matters, because it's not just messing up me personally or others around me. It's messing up God's purposes for his whole creation.